Greetings. Welcome into Pregaming with Bordzy without Bordzy and instead Liam and Cam. The show is a presentation of Bet365. Download the app today because it's never ordinary at Bet365. Get a couple of bets in before the game starts. We are going to lead you into puck drop here. The show is also brought to you by Sherwood Ford the Giant. Hockey fans helping hockey fans. Free valet service for all Oilers fans. Never visit the dealership again for a car service. Get an exclusive swag package for every Nation valet service booked online and get automatically entered to win a monthly prize draw. Book online at sherwoodford.ca. Make sure you add in Oilers Nation Valet in the comments to get in on the draw. Also, at Sherwood Ford, you can get a $500 towards a service plan for Oilers Nation fans with vehicle purchase. Oilers Nation fans, your hockey destination is Sherwood Ford. Just in the nick of time, Cam, what did you make of my two jam-packed ad reads right off the bat?
Can you do them again? I wasn't listening. I didn't catch any of that. Do you mind doing them both again?
I think if I do the Sherwood Ford one a few more times, I should probably get us to the 15-minute mark of this show. What do you think?
That'll get us over the halfway line. You just read it 3 times.
Yeah, there's another huge one I've got later too, Nation Gear. Just wait till I have to read that one. There's a couple of words in there that there's
that's like a whole soliloquy for you in the middle of the show.
There's a couple of ones in there that are indigenous words, and unfortunately just don't know how to say them properly, so I might just avoid saying them all in all. But besides the ad reads, the most important thing on this show is getting everybody ready for the Edmonton Oilers, who take on the Vegas Golden Knights tonight. A huge week for the Oilers. Obviously tonight against Vegas, a midweek game, which against San Jose at 8:30 p.m. Mountain Time. Thank goodness I don't have to do the pre and post game show for that one. And then on Saturday, the LA Kings is where Edmonton will be for a 2 p.m. start, which seems crazy for the how significant that game could be. But Cam, obviously, like we said, tonight, Edmonton, Vegas. What are your initial thoughts coming into this game after Edmonton won the Battle of Alberta on Saturday, thanks to Leon Draisaitl?
The Vegas Golden Knights have really kind of solidified themselves as the top team in the Pacific Division during this little stretch where the Oilers have been kind of hammered by injuries, specifically the Connor McDavid injury. While the Oilers went 2 wins, 2 losses since McDavid's been out of the lineup, the Vegas Golden Knights have been kind of on fire. They're on a 6-game winning streak right now, and they're kind of starting to pull away with this division. It looks now like we can, even with a win for the Oilers in this game, they'd still be a regulation win. That is, they'd still be 7 points back of Vegas with only a handful of games left. So I think this is really mostly a race between the Oilers and the Kings, and there's still 2 head-to-heads there in that series. So we don't know what's going to happen between Edmonton and Los Angeles, but I have a very hard time imagining that the Oilers are going to be able to catch Vegas at this point.
And you know what? Like, it might almost be a blessing in disguise with the way the St. Louis Blues have been playing. It feels inevitable they're going to jump over the Minnesota Wild, who they're now only 1 point behind. Yeah. They've won 9 games in a row. Like, not to disrespect LA, because I think they're a better team than what we've seen in previous years from an LA Kings roster, but I'd much rather play them than the St. Louis Blues right now. Like you said, Vegas have been kind of on a roll recently. I was actually in Vegas last weekend. That's why I wasn't on the Nation vacation this time around. And
yeah, that was confusing. You said you were in Vegas, and I was like, "You're already in Vegas? What?" I was like, "How long are they going to be in Vegas for? The game's not for a week."
I was just so excited. I needed to go and scope things out for everyone. But just with the schedule of me and the missus, that's why it lined up. But it was great. And we went to Vegas, Tampa Bay, and Tampa Bay obviously loaded up at the deadline. Vegas, very quiet deadline. Only Riley Smith was their only addition, vibes guy more than anything. And even that Tampa Bay team, they clearly seemed like the better team on that night, but it didn't really matter. So moving on to tonight's game, I think let's get into the line. Oh, actually, I had one quick question for you as I look down at my notes here for you, Coom. You mentioned there Oilers without McDavid and Draisaitl went 2-2-1. There was obviously the Seattle game, which really sucked. But when you look back at like the circumstances around it, Troy Stecher played forward. Matthias Ekholm didn't play a game. You had Calvin Pickard go in as well. Like, what did you make of the Oilers during that stretch without their star players? And obviously it's continued on, but now Draisaitl's back at least.
I think honestly it was a pretty encouraging sign. I thought a handful of players have stepped up when they needed to without
Mm.
McDavid and Draisaitl specifically. I think the more worrying one is not having Matthias Ekholm and how the blue line looks without him. But with the two main forwards missing, the Oilers have had a decent run. But the one game against Seattle, like you mentioned, that seemed like the most obvious scheduled loss of all time. You, of course, have the game against the Dallas Stars in Edmonton. I thought that was probably the most admirable effort the Oilers when dealing with all these injuries, even more so than the 5-4 game. They beat Seattle in Edmonton. I think the most impressive game was that one against the Dallas Stars, because they went down and it was a game where you could easily kick it away. You know, you're missing your two best players. Nobody expects you to win against a team like the Dallas Stars. They go down, I believe it was 4-1, and they came back, made it 4-3, made it interesting. And a lot of depth players, a lot of kind of secondary players in the lineup in that game played very well. So that was the game that I was impressed with. And the Seattle game, I was fine watching it given how well the team played the night before. But all in all, I think it was decently encouraging. There's been a handful of performances by players who have played more elevated roles without McDavid and Draisaitl in the lineup, and that's positive that to see that before the playoffs.
Yeah, Ryan Nugent-Hopkins obviously being a big one. There was a video Tyler and I did the other day. He was asking me to go. We were talking about Colorado and just kind of where the Oilers are compared to Colorado at their center depth, because everyone talks about the Colorado center depth. And I said Nugent-Hopkins was a better third line center than Charlie Coyle. And I was very surprised at like the praise Charlie Coyle got in a lot of that. Because I think Nuge obviously underwhelming this season. He's had like two really good stretches right after Christmas and this little stretch here too. But throughout his career, he's been significantly better than Charlie Coyle, I would say. But yeah, just on the fellow, what you said there about McDavid and Draisaitl, I think the disappointing thing about the Dallas game was the Oilers played two really strong periods. They just had such a terrible second period. Yeah. And that seems to have like let them down in these last couple of games, at least, of just like this team that was becoming, I don't mean this disrespectively to Jack, but almost irritating how much you'd be like, you should see the numbers the Oilers have in the second period.
Yeah, it was every game. It was adding on to it every single game. Like it was
because the stat was changing so much because they were dominating those second periods, but it just seemed to have fallen apart for them. Before we move on any further and get into your lineups for tonight and your need to know information, let's have a quick look at what's going on in the Odd Company YouTube chat. You can get some Nation Beer Everyday Log, and right now at the two locations where Odd Company is, Richie and downtown. You can also look at your Liquor Connect and see if there's a spot near you. I remember I looked once. They have it out in Bonnyville. If you're in the area, you need some beers out in Bonnyville, which I'm sure most people do. You can go check that out and look on Liquor Connect. I'm sure they've got a bunch more on there now too. Where since the last time I looked, I put in the chat earlier. I'm gonna need the power of conversation to guide us through today's show. Coom. It's a big thing I've been going off recently. I've been pushing it a little bit more. The What Chaos guys are now on board with me. So if you have any questions for Cam and I, just throw them in the Odd Company YouTube chat, and I'm sure there'll be an extra 5 minutes. We need to kill some time later on in the show where we can get to it. Also, Aaron will join us a little bit later on too in the final 15 minutes or so from outside T-Mobile Arena to give us his Bordzy's bankroll, although he hasn't submitted them yet, so I don't know what they're going to be. It's a real treat for all of us. But Sasky Oil Fan, I believe they're out at the Sasky Girl Oil Fan. That might be a different person. Well, that threw me off.
There's two of them. Yeah, there's one Sasky Oil Fan and Sasky Girl Oil Fan.
Okay, well, that really throws a wrench in my plans. I thought that was the gentleman who's on the nation vacation, but I just misread it. They're just talking about how big of a game it is tonight. Round up the troops. It was also a Vegas fan who snuck in there. I hope this is a subscribers only chat, but Christian said, "Go Knights, go down, Oilers down." Well, at least it was a nice comment in comparison to what some of them have been in the past. But let's keep having a look here. What else is going? Was it Dallas game all post and Ottinger standing on his head, said Southpaw. I flushed that game already. I think Ottinger played really, really well in the first period, and for
first
me,
and
like
third, yeah.
Yeah, he's a good goalie, but I think the Oilers, if you look back, like even in the playoffs, obviously, they found a way to get to him pretty consistently, no?
Yeah, they have. I don't think I see. I mean, Jake Ottinger's a good goalie. Like I don't know if I'd call him a Vezina caliber goalie, but one of those goalies who's sort of in the outside part of that conversation. If you were to win a Vezina Trophy, you'd be like, okay, yeah, that's right. Jake Ottinger is one of the better goalies in the league. But I guess maybe it's just a recency bias thing from last year's playoff series. But seeing him in the playoffs, he always seems sort of beatable. He looks good, but beatable. And I thought last year, Stuart Skinner, of course, that was his best playoff series of the four of them. Undoubtedly, he was excellent against Dallas and outdueled Jake Ottinger. So it's definitely possible the Oilers can win that goalie head-to-head again.
Yeah, I think so. Also, Sasky Girl Oil fan put in there, Bordzy called me a boy one night and I changed my name. You just mustn't be the person I thought you
I thought it was
once
two different
were.
people. It's the same person?
I thought so too. You need to figure this out, Sasky Girl Oil fan, because I'm pretty sure someone's stolen your identity.
I think there's two of them.
Yeah, I don't know. If Sasky Oil fan, the OG is out there, let me know. But let's move on to let's get to our home lineup brought to you by Greta. You can head down to Greta for obviously tonight's game if you're looking to go and watch the game somewhere still. But anytime the Oilers are playing, you should head down to Greta. We were there last week with the What Chaos crew. It was an amazing time. Unfortunately, the Oilers got absolutely smoked, so that was incredibly disappointing. But I played all the games, Cam. I played all of them. I know Tyler goes there and just plays the football game. Not me. I was playing beer pong. I played the game where you get the ball in your hand and you throw it at the clowns. Buck Hunter, Wicked Tuna. There's also one of those things now where you hang there for 90 seconds. You ever see those ones?
That's a game?
It is now.
Sounds like an exercise.
Yeah, it does sound like an exercise, but I wanted to play it, but I felt like that was a weird one for me to just hang there alone.
I don't know about that. Well, I don't know if that's how I want to have fun in a bar. Hanging there with my arms like that.
I'll do it. You can watch me, and maybe you can play the clown game or something like that. But Cam, Pat, do we have the Oilers lines we can flash up here? There is a slight change to the lineup. First line, Podkolzin, Draisaitl, Victor Arvidsson. Second line is where the significant change comes in. Kasperi Kapanen rotating in of Jeff Skinner's spot, who's now down on the third line. Kapanen alongside Ryan Nugent-Hopkins, Zach Hyman. Third line, like I said, Jeff Skinner alongside Matthias Janmark and Connor Brown. I actually don't mind that line, and we'll get into it a little bit later. But Max Jones, who is just absolutely in the doghouse at the moment, alongside Adam Henry.
Jones right now.
Yeah, he's minimum Jones. Max Jones, Adam Henry, and Corey Perry on the blue line still. No Matthias Ekholm, but good news, John Klingberg isn't playing. It's Jake Wallman and Evan Bouchard on the top pair, Darnell Nurse and Troy Stetcher, who is giving you maximum effort pretty much every night on that second pair. Maximum Stretcher, Tony Stretcher. And then on the third pair is Brett Kulak and Ty Emerson. We'll get into the goaltending talk a little bit later on, but it is Calvin Pickard, your starter tonight for Edmonton. Cam, what are your thoughts on the idea of having Kasperi Kapanen cheeks clapping and on the second line next to Nugent Hopkins and Zach Hyman instead of Jeff Skinner?
I know it honestly sort of seems like a meme at this point, Jeff Skinner not being able to get opportunities in the top six next to the best two centers. And of course, Connor McDavid's out right now, but not getting opportunities next to Leon Draisaitl. And the weird thing is that Jeff Skinner, I don't know what it is, but you look at a line like this one, Matthias Janmark and Connor Brown being his two wingers, and you think there's no way a guy like Jeff Skinner could do well playing with these two completely different role players than Jeff Skinner is on the roster. But for some reason, it just sort of works. You have two players who, I guess, go and dig out the puck, win those races, play a defensively responsible game. And for some reason, it seems to work for Jeff Skinner. He does mostly all of the work in the offensive zone with that line there, and they tend to generate some chances. I don't know what it is, but something about having Jeff Skinner with those defensive role playing forwards that seems to work. I don't know why he hasn't been getting more looks with McDavid and Draisaitl in recent months, but for some reason he seems to work in the bottom six.
Yeah, it really does. And that line probably gets a few more minutes than I think people recognize as well, especially at 5-on-5. They typically creep up into like second on the list or very, very close to second most minutes as a trio, especially with McDavid out of the lineup. But I like it too. I think a reason why maybe it works is Skinner gets to hold the puck a little bit more. That's probably a factor in it. And I don't know what you thought last game, but I didn't think him, Nugent Hopkins, and Hyman had much impact in that Battle of Alberta at all. It really just felt like Draisaitl turned it on for a little bit, and everyone else was just there for the ride. No.
Yeah, it kind of felt like that. It felt like pretty much every line there, it was just tight, like chippy hockey where there was very little space. It was mostly defense first, and then like you said, the third period, Draisaitl just sort of shows up and then puts the Oilers on his back, scores the 2 big goals, the game tying goal and the game winner in overtime. I mean, I don't know if it was necessarily the line itself not clicking, the line of Skinner, Hyman, and Nugent Hopkins. On paper, it makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes sense. Like it should be a line that works. And this is one of those lines that people talked about in the offseason as a possibility, but for some reason it hasn't clicked. And it could just be a consequence of the kind of game that was being played against Calgary. It was just such a shut down, no space, no skill checking game that maybe it just didn't work for that line. But like I've said, this past handful of games, when you put Jeff Skinner in those in spots with those role players, it just seems to work. So I'm not really surprised they went back to that Skinner, Janmark, and Brown line. It was surprisingly effective.
Yeah, on the season, that trio has played 26 minutes and 54 seconds at 5-on-5. They've only outscored their opponents 1-0, but have outshot them 17-11. I'm sure it was a Dallas game, if I'm not mistaken. They ended up outshooting the Dallas Stars 4-0 on the night, which I think Knobloch has really looked for this like defensive line, I guess. Someone they can just trust in the offensive zone, even if they're not scoring a goal. Just get a bit of something going. And ironically, Jeff Skinner has found his way onto this defensive line. But Kasperi Kapanen creeping up to the second line, does that mean anything to you? Do you think it's just a factor of like he's kind of offensive and he'll just bring a bit of speed?
I don't know. It honestly sort of feels like this is a placeholder for, I don't know if it winds up being Trent Frederick in that spot or if it winds up being Evander Kane when hypothetically both of them are healthy and back in the lineup. I mean, knock on wood that's a thing that happens, because we have seemingly no real idea as to when any of the injured Oilers are going to be back on the team. But we're just assuming that, playoffs day one are going to show up on April 19th or whatever it is. They're going to be playing the LA Kings. Everyone's going to be healthy. And I think you're just having Kapanen in this spot right now as a placeholder. I think Nugent Hopkins and Hyman potentially as a duo with either Evander Kane or Trent Frederick, a big body like that on that line. I think that's sort of what we're seeing here.
Yeah, you mentioned the injuries there. Obviously, we addressed off the top too, but significant news that Kane and Trent Frederick both came on the trip, along with Connor McDavid, who skated during morning skate today. I think we can all assume McDavid will be back, maybe by LA on Saturday, but for the very least, when he plays Anaheim, I don't think he would have come on the trip if he wasn't gonna play. Maybe even San Jose to kind of ease him into things, But the intriguing part for me is obviously Frederick, who we haven't seen at all. Have you heard anything about when he coming back? Like, we're only 2 weeks away from the end of the season. We haven't seen a big trade deadline splash play a game yet.
Yeah, the Trent Frederick and Evander Kane joined the Oilers on this trip, and I believe both of them took morning skate with the team. But we all know that, of course, Evander Kane's not going to be activated during the regular season because of all the LTIR stuff and where the Oilers are at with the salary cap. But Trent Frederick is sort of the wild card here, because when he was acquired, there was talk that he could be back with the team before the end of March. And of course, now it's the beginning of April. And like you said, there really isn't that much time left in the season. The Oilers will play their last game of the regular season on April the 16th here. So that's just a couple of weeks away. It's 2 weeks on Wednesday. So a handful of games left still to be played, but only a couple of weeks. So the other injury note is, I believe it was Darren Dreger who was on TSN today, reported that Connor McDavid isn't going to be back until the last week of the season, but I don't think anybody from Edmonton has confirmed that report. So it is hypothetically possible that we don't see McDavid until right before the playoffs. And maybe it's a game against the Kings that they're playing at home on the 14th of April. That's obviously going to be a 4-point game that could be important in determining home ice. And then, like you said, the game against San Jose, kind of a easy way to finish off the season there on the Wednesday.
Yeah, Pat, can we just pull up the schedule there quickly? Because like you said, the season ends in just over 2 weeks away. And one interesting layer, obviously, Evander Kane is on this trip. And I really wonder if he's not coming back for a little bit here. So he can go to Bakersfield for 1 week to skate. You would imagine he doesn't come back. And I don't know what Bakersfield's schedule is. I should have probably prepped for this part of the show. But April 10th until, the 9th, he finds his way into a couple of Bakersfield games. I think it just makes a lot of sense to even get him in one. as easy as it is for all of us to be like, well, just bring him back in game one of the playoffs. How hard could it be? It's like the level, the difference of levels is unbelievable, to be honest. And as much as you would want Evander Kane in the lineup for any of these final few games, or a couple of revenge games against San Jose and Winnipeg. Wow, this really is just an Evander Kane row of former teams here. Where's Buffalo? You know, but it would be interesting. But let's move on, Pat, to the away line. Oh, sorry. Well, let's do this. Yeah, let's do the away lineup, and then I'll get to the goalies quickly too. Take a look at the Golden Knights lineup. There is actually a interesting wrinkle in tonight. It doesn't sound like Alex Pietrangelo is going to play unless something is shaken loose whilst we've gone live here. And if we have, remember, the power of conversation can be used in the Odd Company YouTube chat, but I'm pretty sure Pietrangelo is not going to play. But here's how the Vegas Golden Knights are lining up tonight. Ivan Barbashev on the top line with Jack Eichel and Mark Stone. Ivan Barbashev was almost an Edmonton Oiler. I believe he was the pick in the David Perron trade, if I'm not mistaken. I believe he was the first round pick that Edmonton traded away. You can fact check me. I'm pretty sure I'm right on that one. Brandon Saad, also almost a former Oiler. Nicholas Waugh, Pavel Dorofeyev, who has been a great player for them this season, really made up for the loss of Jonathan Marsh or so. Olofsson, Carlson, and Smith on the third line. Tanner Pearson, Brett Howden, former Moose Jaw Warriors, Jay would like me to say, and Keegan Colasar on the fourth line. Defensive pairings, Brady McNabb, Shea Theodore, who was obviously injured at the Four Nations face-off for Canada, made his return to the lineup just last week, so he's at 3 games under his belt. Noah Hannafin, Zach Whitecloud, Nicholas Haig, and Caden Korzak. I once interviewed his brother, Ryder Korzak, who is also a former Moose Jaw Warrior. I believe he's in the New York Rangers organization now. Don't fact check me on that one. But Cam, what do you make of this Golden Knights lineup? Like, as great as they are, and I don't want this to come across as a wrong way to say, but like, they don't seem as threatening as they have been in the past, but they're still such a good team.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but you look up and down the roster and you're like, yeah, this doesn't seem like a Vegas Golden Knight team that, has all of the same star power, all the same depth that it once did. But I think a lot of what's going for Vegas this year, what's resulted in them being, they're on their way to winning the Pacific Division for, I believe, the fifth time in 8 seasons since entering the NHL. And I think a big part of that's been how good their top line is. Like, Jack Eichel's having the best season of his career. He's got 93 points through 72 games. Mark Stone was injured for a little bit, limited to 59 games because of that, but has 66 points in the games that he has played. Ivan Barbashev, like you were talking about, the almost Oiler once upon a time, Ivan Barbashev, solid season, 20 goals, 47 points. I think that line's been doing a lot of heavy lifting for the Golden Knights. And then also having Tomas Hertl, they acquired ahead of last year's trade deadline from the San Jose Sharks, had a bit of a slow first season in Vegas because of his injury last year, but leads the team in goals this year with 31 and has 59 points as well. So that excellent top line, and then having down the middle Jack Eichel career season and Tomas Hertl as your 1-2 punches, Vegas is probably as strong down the middle in their first 2 lines as they maybe ever have been since they entered the NHL 8 seasons ago.
Yeah, Jack Eichel actually the best season by a Vegas Golden Knight ever with 93 points. He's the first player to get more than 90 in a season, and it seems inevitable. He's only 7 away to become the first Golden Knight to get 100 points in a season. Now, you've said an interesting thing there. The Golden Knights are going to win their 5th Pacific Division trophy, which is insane. So since they came into the league, we'll do a little trivia here, folks. Let me know in the chat if you know the answers. Who are the other teams to win the Pacific Division whilst Vegas has been in the NHL? Because I know the answer after I saw it, but I was very surprised.
The Oilers have faced 2 of those teams in the playoffs.
They have, and they
during that time, both. Yeah.
So who is it?
Both, and they ruined both the franchises. That might be giving it away. You can think about which franchises are still kind of just floating around there as dead corpses.
It's surprising too how much of a stranglehold the Anaheim Ducks had on this division for such a long time. Even like San Jose, I don't even remember seeing them on the list of like a recent team. Maybe they haven't won the Pacific Division. I don't recall, to be honest.
San Jose's last Pacific Division was 2010-11. Anaheim's was 16-17 when they beat the Oilers in the playoffs. The one that we're forgetting, 2018-19, Calgary finished first that year. I believe they lost in the first round of the playoffs to Colorado. Yeah, they were upset. And then the two after that, the ones that lost to the Oilers in the playoffs, of course, were the Flames first, and then the Canucks last year.
Yep. Shout out to those two organizations. I hope they're doing terribly, which they are. A couple other notes on the Vegas Golden Knights lineup. Obviously, no Thomas Hertl in that lineup too. He's their leading goal scorer. He was injured in that Tampa Bay game a couple of Sundays ago. Had a tough collision into the boards and left the game and has not been back since. I do think it's more precautionary than anything long term for them. Ilya Samsonov left a game against the Nashville Predators as well over the weekend. So they called up Akira Schmid, I believe is how you say his name, something like that. I believe he's from Switzerland. Believe everything I'm saying today, folks. It's probably right. Let's get into the starting goalies, which is brought to you by Sherwood Power Sports and Marine. Boat season is just around the corner, so if you need to get your boat up and running and ready to go to get on the waters, you can take it down to Sherwood Power Sports and Marine right now in the heart of Sherwood Park, just off Broadmoor Boulevard. And I think Lakeland Drive is what the actual road is called. It's close to there anyway. They have a pool where you can just back up your boat and it's right on the water, and then you can get it checked out there. Tyler and I were down at the boat show the other day at the Expo Center, so maybe you bought a boat there and you need to go and check some things out. They also have some great fishing gear just upstairs. A lot of people don't know that you can get some good fishing gear down at Sherwood Power Sports and Marine. But like I said before, the Edmonton Oilers are going with Calvin Pickett tonight out of want, maybe, but more out of necessity, because Stuart Skinner is injured and they play San Jose on Thursday, so you would imagine Olivier Rodrigue would be in that game, considering Stuart Skinner also isn't on the trip. But you can see there, here's a goalie comparison. Aiden Hill kind of taking over all three of the major categories there. For Calvin Pickett, 2.71 goals against average, a .889 save percentage. No shutouts this season, but he has come in a couple of times when Skinner's been taken out of games, and they're kind of like 5-minute shutouts, so that's not such a bad thing. On the road this season, though, is where Calvin Pickett has shined in 16 games. He has a .908 save percentage and a 2.64 goals against. Obviously, signature wins coming against Carolina not so long ago when the Oilers desperately needed a win. They won 3-1 that night. He made 35 saves, and it took a great play from the Carolina Hurricanes power play to get anything by him, and then obviously a big 7-1 win against the Minnesota Wild earlier in the season too. But this is the first time that he has, one, played the Vegas Golden Knights, and two, played 3 games in a row. Did you know he was a former Golden Knight?
Oh, yeah, I remember. Wasn't he their expansion draft pick from Was he an expansion draft pick?
Well, yeah, he was their expansion draft. I think it was Colorado.
Or did they claim him on waivers? Because I remember that it was because he was with the Leafs, the Toronto Maple Leafs, and they had that goalie monster where they had him and Garrett Sparks. That I believe they also picked up Curtis McElhinney McBackup on waivers. Yes. And then Pickard had to go on waivers and Vegas grabbed him. That's what happened. But Vegas had their own weird roulette going on with the goalies, because they had Malcolm Subban, and then they had other guys going on waivers too.
Oscar Dansk, they had that first year. Dylan Ferguson had to come up from the Kamloops Blazers. They had Maxime Legacy, I believe his name was.
Max Legacy.
Yeah, but they didn't claim on waivers. They actually did take him, and then they ended up traded him away. Traded from the Vegas Golden Knights. He was traded to Toronto for Tobias Lindbergh and a 6th-round pick, which turned out to be, I don't even know how to say that guy's name, Peter Dingleberto. Ever heard of him? Probably not. But whoever he is, that's what happened. But Calvin Pickard was kind of supposed to be their backup behind Fleury, and they ended up going with Malcolm Subban instead.
Right.
You can decide who ended up winning that battle. But yeah, he's never actually played the Vegas Golden Knights before, which makes sense. He's a backup. And also his first time playing 3 games in a row. 2-part question. One, it seems inevitable Rodrigo play against San Jose, right? Like, surely you can't play him 4 games in a row with LA right around the corner.
You're flying pretty close to the sun if you're doing that.
Very close to the sun. And 2, what is your confidence level in Calvin Pickett? Pretty good game against Calgary, but obviously a bit of a stinker against Seattle Kraken.
It's hard to say. I mean, Cal Pickard's been better than expected for the Oilers pretty much the whole time. He was, signed to be the 3rd-string goalie, kind of the starting veteran guy for the Bakersfield Condors. And then when Jack Campbell wasn't NHL caliber, they brought up Pickard, and he's honestly been solid since, better than anybody's expected. And there's been a handful of games where he's, played well, and then he comes in his next game, doesn't play quite so well. Like you mentioned, he had that great game against Carolina, and then Chris Knobloch says, okay, let's give him the next start. Let's go with the hot hand. He had this great game against the Hurricanes, and he comes out against the Anaheim Ducks and allows, 4 goals on 12 shots or something in the first period, and gets yanked in that one. So yeah, like you said, this is a backup goalie who probably isn't going to be good if you play him 5, 6, a handful of games in a row. But Cal Pickard was also a starting goalie in the NHL at once upon a time too, back with the Colorado Avalanche. And I mean, albeit this was one of the worst seasons the Colorado Avalanche have ever had, but Cal Pickard was the team's starting goalie that year and played 50 or 60 games or something, I believe it was. So this is somebody who has the pedigree of starting a handful of games at the NHL level. But I am with you. I think if there is a spot for the Oilers to give Olivier Rodrigue a start in the NHL, like he's already seen some action, he's already made some saves. He's got his feet wet. He's made his debut, but you'd think they'd like to give him a start while they have this chance with him on the roster, right? And you might as well do it against the Sharks, who are, beyond a couple of skilled forwards, essentially an AHL team.
Do you remember the last time the Oilers started a rookie goalie against the San Jose Sharks and what happened?
A rookie goalie, who would that have been?
Stuart Skinner. I'm pretty confident he had a 3-0 shutout against them when the Oilers obviously had Mike Smith and Mikko Koskinen, and then the next day he was sent to Bakersfield, and everyone was up in arms about it. So
right, yeah, I remember that. No,
you remember that? Yeah, and I mean, hey, like with the way it lines up, like I don't think Rodrigue would get sent down the next day, obviously, because they have to play LA, but like it probably wouldn't be too far away that he would get sent down there again. But you mentioned that Calvin Pickett, obviously a starting goalie back in the day with the Colorado Avalanche. 50 games he played that season. 904 save percentage on what people did regard as one of the worst NHL teams ever, which ironically
they were terrible. They were so bad.
And if I'm not mistaken, the next year they lost the draft lottery, and that's how they ended up getting Cale Makar. So it all kind of worked out for them in the long run. But Calvin Pickett, I said this fact the other day on the pregame and on this show actually, and it turned out to be kind of right. He has the second best rookie season for a goalie since the lockout when he came in with Colorado. He had a 932 save percentage in 16 games for them. So obviously not terrible numbers. Adin Hill on the other side with Ilya Samsonov out. Adin Hill has been, I was reading some Vegas stuff today and people described him as like playoff Hill form right now. When obviously the Oilers helped quite significantly in that regard after Laurent Brossoit got injured. And I don't think we've seen him in the NHL since, or very, very little at least. His last regulation loss, which March 9th against the LA Kings, they lost 6-5. However, since then he has a 934 save percentage in 7 or 8 games. I can't remember what I wrote down, and then a 1.74 goals against average. The interesting thing about Adin Hill, which I want to get your thoughts on, is obviously he's a good goalie. He went and played in the Four Nations for Canada. Or sat on the bench, I guess you could say. But recently just signed a new deal with the Golden Knights. $37.5 million for 6 years, $6.5 million, making him, once it kicks in, the 10th highest paid goaltender in the NHL, ahead of Binnington, Markstrom, and Logan Thompson. I'm sure you can see where this question is leading. Skinner probably getting a little bit less than what Adin Hill is, right? Or do you think it's all dependent on what happens? I guess he still has another year, of course, too.
I think a lot of it comes down to, what happens this spring with the Oilers in the playoffs, and with Stuart Skinner as the team starting goalie in the playoffs, and then of course what happens in the final year of that contract as well. When you look at the deals being signed, so long as Stuart Skinner's solid this spring and solid next season, anything in line with career average, what he's been doing, I guess, for the past year or two, if he keeps that up, then just looking at the numbers game, it's hard to imagine him getting anything less than $5 million annually in his next contract, just given what everybody else is signing for. But then when you're a goalie like Adin Hill and your agent's negotiating your contract and you're negotiating with Vegas, and you can point that you were the goalie that led them to their first Stanley Cup in team history, then it becomes a lot easier to ask for more, even if you are coming off up and down performances for a goalie, like Stuart Skinner, for example. We've talked about a million times a goalie who's all over the grid, up and down, sometimes very good, sometimes very bad, and seemingly very little middle ground, but just given the market for goalies, it's sort of hard to imagine them getting less than $5 million annually. And the Oilers are going to have to decide, is Stuart Skinner the goalie they're going to do that with? And I think a lot of it will come down to this year in the playoffs. The Oilers committed to going through this playoffs with Skinner and Pickard, who are the two goalies that got them to the Stanley Cup final last year. Lots of fans were screaming for the Oilers, not screaming, but asking for the Oilers to go and acquire a different goalie, whether it was John Gibson, Utah, Karl Vejmelka as well.
Mm-hmm.
And they decided, let's keep these two guys. But new GM Stan Bowman, it's hard to say if the Oilers get bounced in the first or second round of the playoffs, even in the conference finals of the playoffs. If they don't get back to the Stanley Cup final, then in the offseason, they might be inclined to shake up this goaltending duo.
Yeah, the minimum of what Edmonton needs from their goalies this year is quite significant, to say the least. In the over in the Odd Company YouTube chat, Levi said his price goes up at least $1 million with a ring. I think that's totally fair to say.
Yeah.
I think Aiden Hill got himself an extra $1 million because of that. Benjamin put a goalie that's under 900 save percentage. Couple of question marks. Come on, fellas. I mean, that's totally a fair comment. Skinner has not played to the standard, and that's kind of the point we're saying is next season, if he can pick it up, especially in the playoffs too, and kind of get back to that, even like 905. Like if you look back at his numbers last season, in 59 games, he had a 905. Year before, in 50 games, he had a 914. So I think this season is just, I know his numbers look like, and they have regressed over 3 years. I do think he's a better goalie. My dad is in on Facebook, Coom. He said, I love picks like I love Coomzy. They're the best, and we've got in their respected roles. There you go. And he just texted me, I'm sure. He said, make sure you read my comment or don't read my comment. One of the two. So I'll have to read that one later. But my dad's a big fan of you, Coom, since your appearances on the one of the intermission shows back in the day where you didn't watch the game and then came back to the intermission show to tell everyone
like me.
All about it. No, it doesn't sound like he does it. Let's get into the Will Hawk need to know information for tonight's game. This segment is brought to you by our friends at Will Hawk Beef Jerky. Only the finest tasting meat products ever earn the Will Hawk name. Made from 100% pure Alberta beef, Will Hawk Beef Jerky is aged, seasoned, marinated, smoked to savory perfection. It is so good. Will Hawk Beef Jerky gladly fills orders of any size. Find their beef jerky, sausage, and other products exclusively out of their Leduc location, or you can order online. Get your jerky on. For more information, go to willhawkbeefjerky.com. And that actually wasn't anything I just read. I was just off the cuff because that's how good it is at Will Hawk. It is the best. Jeff asks, why are you guys not in Vegas? Because someone's got to hold down the fort here. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, that is it. Someone's got to stay behind and make sure the lights are on and off at the end of the night too.
Bill's got to be paid at the end of the month. Coming into this game, the Oilers have won 7 of their last 10 games against the Pacific Division opponents. Obviously, Seattle being one of the losses recently. I would assume that Vancouver lost from not so long ago is in there. But the Oilers have done well against Vegas this season, 1-on-1. When they played them, 2-0-1-2. They've lost 2. They've won 1. Have they played them 3 times?
It's 1 win and 2 losses so far, I think. Is that right?
Something like
that. Why am I forgetting? I'll go back and take a look quickly.
They have won 1. I know that because I was that good.
They lost 4-2 in November. They lost 1-0 in December.
Right.
And then they won 6-3 later in December.
The 1-0 game was when the Oilers absolutely dominated them. That's what I was trying to get at, was they've actually played pretty well against the Golden Knights this season. Even that 4-2 loss, the Oilers were up in that game. I believe it was 2-1 or at least 2-0. And it was when the Evan Bouchard kind of slander began on the season and like lazy efforts and stuff like that, where I say go back. Matthias Ekholm deserves a little bit of criticism for those games as well. But I think overall, Coom, the Oilers, like I said, have fared pretty well against Vegas, and we should be lined up for another great game tonight.
Yeah, this sort of I mean, there's still the Los Angeles Kings in the way in the first round of the playoffs, and you can't just sit here and say the Oilers are going to cruise to a victory against the Kings, because they look like they might be the best version of the Kings that the Oilers have seen in these first round playoff series. It'll be the 4th year in a row, and they look quite good. But it does sort of feel like we've been sort of building towards another Oilers and Golden Knights, I guess, second round 2023 playoff rematch. Vegas, as we all remember, beat the Oilers in 6 games that year. They clinched Game 7 in Edmonton and went on to win the Stanley Cup. So it does sort of feel like we've been kind of building up to that rematch this season. All of the games, even the ones that were played in the first half of the season, had that kind of playoff atmosphere to them, that intensity where they knew these were an important 2 points up for grabs because it's going to mean something in the Pacific Division standings. And it's going to mean something come springtime when we're deciding which of these two teams is going to be, the home team or which one's going to be hosting Game 7.
Yeah, a couple of comments quickly in the Odd Company YouTube chat. Doug is in. Canadian dollar is brutal. Hard
That's
to disagree with that comment. Garlic Gordon, hell of a name. I saw he put up a little bit further on. He was the biggest fan. Oh, there it is. Garlic is Oilers UK biggest fan. Thanks for listening, Garlic, over in England. If you're over there, I shouldn't say England, the United Kingdom, I guess. That was a pretty late game to be staying up for. So shout out to you. Midwest, I want Iguodala. Very interesting chat today. Leon for the heart. I mean, he comes back and absolutely dominates that game against Calgary. I don't think we need to get into it like too heavily, but I mean, the fact that I don't know if you saw the Bucks had him at almost plus 500 in second place behind Connor Hellebuck after missing 3 games, and he comes back and now they're both at the same. I think it's plus 120 last time I saw. It does feel inevitable that Leon is going to lock this up, right?
It feels like it, yeah, especially this stretch here with Connor McDavid being out for, we don't know how long he's going to be out for. We don't have a timeline for his return, but the speculation is that it's going to at least be another handful of games. So at least 2, 3, maybe 4 or 5 games here for Leon Draisaitl to carry the Oilers on his back a little bit like he did against Calgary. Like, I mean, I'm not going to say it was just a one-player effort against the Flames. It was a handful of players playing well. Pickard was good in net. The team played well defensively, and it all came together. But Leon Draisaitl is sort of the one, elite offensive talent on the Oilers right now when Connor McDavid isn't in the lineup. So if he has a couple more big games like that, even if he doesn't pass Nathan McKinnon for most points, it feels like he's going to win the Rocket Richard by so much. He's going to win, most even strength goals, most game-winning goals. He had that record already for the most overtime goals in a season. It just feels like 2 or 3 more games here, and he's probably got this thing locked up, unless Connor Hellebuck does some crazy stuff at the latter part of the season. But if you're the Jets, why would you be playing him that much when you're in the spot that you're in?
Totally. It seems inevitable they're going to give Eric Comrie maybe a couple extra games, especially after what happened to them in the playoffs last season, where they basically got 5 really good games from Connor Hellebuck, but everybody else fell apart around him. So continuing on, Draisaitl also only 2 goals away from 400 in his career. So hey, no one to be shocked if he walks away tonight with his 400th goal. And then also Jeff Skinner, 4 points in his last 5 games. Obviously, we spoke about him being with Janmark and Brown already. There was an interesting question in the mailbag this week, Coom, and I wanted your thoughts on it. Someone asked, Clay, I think, if I'm not mistaken, health or home ice advantage? What is more important to you as you're not in overall, but just over this next little stretch here?
I think undoubtedly health. I mean, the Oilers, as good as the LA Kings are at home, and they're arguably the best team in NHL at home. I think they're 24-4-4 in LA this season. That's off the top of my head from writing the game notes this morning, but don't quote me on that. It's something like that. They're one of the best teams at home. The Oilers have already, they had to go into LA in Game 6 in that series in 2022, I think it was, the first time they played LA, and win that Game 6 in order to kick it back home for Game 7. And I realize the situations are very different, but the core of the Oilers has gone into opposing teams' buildings and won Game 7s before. Think back to last year, of course, they beat the Vancouver Canucks, and they won Game 7 in Vancouver. It's a thing they can do, but what the Oilers aren't going to do is win playoff series with Connor McDavid on the roster at 50%, Mattias Ekholm at 25%, and Stuart Skinner at 75%. I think that's not really the version of the Oilers we want to see. We don't want to see them go full throttle here to finish second in the Pacific Division just to host LA and be a shell of themselves and wind up losing the series at home or something like that. That's not what anybody wants to see. The Oilers need to be healthy wherever they are, even if they're the 8th seed. It doesn't matter. They have to be healthy.
Yeah, I think health, and many people agree in the chat as well. Bo, Veronica, and Doug all say health hands down is obviously the answer. But the difference between LA on the road and at home is crazy. Like you said, their road record, I believe, is 14, 19, and 4, something like that. And the home record, you said, it is correct, 24, 4 and 4, something along those lines. Anyway, quickly, we have a super chat brought to you by the Ben Stelter Foundation. Obviously, all our super chats go to the Ben Stelter Foundation. So please send in your donations to that. You can save them for the post-game show too. Mr. Katz, for the boys left behind, stay warm, $1.99. There you go. Shout out to Mr. Katz. Oh, Mr. Cates. My apologies. Probably not to say that last one. Thank you very much for the donation, Mr. Cates. Quickly moving on to the Vegas side of things. Vegas own a 45-20-8 record. They're first in the Pacific Division and aren't too far off the Winnipeg Jets for first in the NHL either, who they do play this week as well. They're 7-2-1 in their last 10 and just went 3-0 on their most recent road trip. I believe they're on a 6-game win streak also. With a win tonight, Vegas will actually clinch a spot in the Stanley Cup playoffs as well, which obviously seems inevitable whenever that seems to come around. If it's tonight or the next night, it doesn't really matter. Game 700 tonight for Mark Stone, which seems crazy to think he hasn't hit that mark yet, but obviously, no pun intended. Obviously missing so many ends of the seasons since he became a Golden Knight is kind of crazy. It's funny to see like his heel turn. I remember seeing him when he was a World Juniors player and loved him. The idea of like a 5th, 6th round pick, whatever he was, playing on the World Juniors was awesome. Shout out to the Brandon Wheat Kings. The other note I had on here tonight for tonight's game too, Bruce Cassidy was in his pregame press conference talking about the difference between playing against McDavid or not playing against McDavid, and basically said like the Oilers are one of the few teams in the NHL where you actually have to game plan for a certain player, so a bit of a different approach for them. He also said in their recent run is not based off one player in particular, but they're just finding different ways to win, which is making them a very dangerous team. Obviously, we spoke about their lineup earlier and how it doesn't seem that threatening on paper, but my God, it really, really is. But Cam, I know Aaron's waiting in the wings, but I'll give you some final thoughts here. Do you have a key to victory for us? Maybe a goal scorer and a final score here, and then we'll see you on the post-game show.
I think the key to victory is going to be just sort of playing a slightly better version of the game they played against Calgary. Play that tight, lockdown defensive game, that boring game, unfortunately, and then hope that Leon Draisaitl or Nugent Hopkins, probably one of those two, comes through with a big goal at some point in the game, a goal or two, and then win this thing 3-2, 2-1. That's what they need. Strong defense, solid goaltending from Cal Peckard, and then a big goal from, I'm going to guess, Leon Draisaitl. I feel like he's going to lock up the Hart Trophy here in the next week.
Do you think he'll get his 400th goal tonight? Like we said, 2 away.
I could see it. Yeah, 2 goals from Leon Draisaitl. How about that? Back-to-back 2-goal games.
No one would be shocked. But Cam, thank you very much. We'll let you get ready for the game a little bit earlier. Maybe you can make a nice little sandwich before you sit down. Now you've got an extra 10 minutes, and we'll let Cam go, Pat, and then we'll bring in the man himself, Aaron Bordado, for his his bets. I forgot what they're called. Bordzy's bankroll. There it is. He's rolling in. Can you hear me? Are you at the top of the Eiffel Tower? It looks like you're at the top of the Eiffel Tower.
So,
you can't hear us.
Brett's here with me.
Brett?
It's very tough to hear you right now, but we're outside.
Let's go Oilers.
Let's go Oilers.
Let's go Oilers. Liam, you might have been able to tell we're having a great time on this trip. Boys are having hits. The greatest vibe. This place that we just went into, this VIP lounge thing, free booze, free food, the whole shebang. It's kind of insane. Vibes are incredible. Bert, how we doing?
Utterly fantastic. I was surprised that I was even here.
I'm surprised you know. I'm very happy you made it there, Brett, man. I'm glad you figured that out. I don't know what happened. I'm just glad you're there.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a situation getting Brett to Vegas. We don't need to touch on that. We don't need to touch on that. But
I'm here.
Great time. He's here. Everybody's inside. Vibes are these. We just got more.
We got so many Oilers fans.
It is insane, dude. Outside, Liam, you remember when we were in Vegas? Outside, like the beer house in T-Mobile, 65-35 Oilers to Vegas fans. It's crazy. Like we travel like insane. It's nuts. Vibes, high fives everywhere you go. Let's go Oilers everywhere you go. Baby! Boo! 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 But people, you know you couldn't keep me away. It's pregame with Bordzy. We're in Vegas, and we got physical tickets. Shout out Bet365.
Yes.
Whatever the moment, never ordinary.
Never.
Use the promo code NATION. By Liam, Pat, if you got it for me, you can throw up 3 picks. So what I've got, that's the head-to-head.
If you want to know.
So what I got is a Leon Draisaitl anytime goal, because why not? Why not? Simple. We're going to do Zach Hyman, 3 shots. And we're going to do Oilers money line. I did also do Oilers minus 2.5 because Jay is just chasing the juice. He convinced me, twisted my arm. Yeah, those are the 3 bets. And we're going to ride with that. There's a couple squad rides going down. The group's heavily in the Circa Sportsbook. We could say that. And going to be a good time, people. I miss you all. We love you all. Give me a let's go, Oilers.
Let's go, Oilers.
Liam,
I have to be honest with you. When I heard that the Vegas Golden Knights can clinch a playoff spot with a win tonight, I sat there and went, this is going to be a spoiler tonight. We're going to sit here and utterly destroy the Vegas Golden Knights. Not only are you taking the Oilers money line, you're taking puck line. The Oilers are winning by 11.
11. Wow, 11.
It's going to be a dub. It's going to be a dub. Liam, we love you. It's very hard to hear you, but I love you. Oh, Brett, eat a dub.
There you go.
I love you all. I miss you all. And Brett, let's fire it out with Cup Year.
Cup Year.
It's a Cup Year.
Cup Year.
There you go. All right, guys. Well, we will see you on the post-game show, maybe.
What's your guys' name?
I can't hear a word you're saying. I love you.
Goodbye.
I'm out. Liam, you're the best. Everyone in the chat, throw down your courtesy like. Shout out Shirt for the Giant. Peace.
There you go. See you later. McDiesel, Liam's daydreaming about baked potatoes and banana splits. Call me red-handed. There you go. That'll kind of wrap it on here. I thought Aaron was going to join us pretty much to round out the rest of the show, but that is obviously not happening. And I have nothing left in my script to say. That was all I've been paid to say is everything I've got out there so far. So if you want to give, I'll give a couple of Bet365 picks. I am going with a Leon Draisaitl assist tonight, along with 3 shots on goal, which pays out for about plus 170. We'll quickly go over to the Odd Company YouTube chat. Wurtsov's Bordzy's hammered. I think they're having a very nice time there in Vegas. And if you ever want to go on a nation vacation, the Vegas one is fantastic to go on. I'm disappointed didn't get to go this year, but it is what it is. I'm hoping we can get there in round 2 of the playoffs, and we'll all have a nice trip down to Vegas when it's a little bit warmer here as well. But for now, we'll let everyone go a little bit early. Thank you very much for watching Pregaming with Bordzy from Coom and I, and Pat as well on the back, and also our intern Payden, who's lingering back there somewhere. I haven't heard his voice yet, but Chris is in quickly, who we blocked on the YouTube chat. He's over on the Facebook. Dallas healthy will walk Edmonton. Damn, they definitely didn't do that last year, did they, Chris? Come on, let's get some likes in for Chris being wrong once again. But there you go. Thank you, everyone, for watching Pregame with Bordzy. We'll be back with the Oilers Nation After Dark immediately following the game. We'll be pretty quick because my TV is right there, and I'll be parking my bum on that couch for the next few hours. But we'll see you there. Thank you, everyone, for watching. See you later.